Hello YouTube chess lovers, my friends, this is Gunjan here. Welcome to my new episode where I'm going to show you a complete refuta and a tricky line against Evans Gambit. Now the opening arises after the following move order: e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, bishop to c5, and now the characteristic Evans Gambit move b4. This old romantic gambit is still popular nowadays. The simple reason is it has a tremendous attacking potential. However, in modern era where pro engines grabs every single material if it's possible, I think we are all set to surprise our opponent. The line I have recommended in this video has not only a surprise value, but in many lines black obtain a decent position with a solid pawn advantage. Here my recommendation is you certainly take this pawn, and after the move c3, as I have highlighted over here, these are the most popular choices by the black, but we are going to play a super surprising move, bishop to d6. Well, with this move what black is announcing is, look, you have sacrificed your pawn and now show me where is your compensation. Now there is one important point I like to mention before we move on, that is, due to the time constraint I cannot go each and every line in detail, so I'm going to pause at certain point where black obtain a decent advantage. However, you can look out these lines in the PGN which is available in the description. In this position, white has the only good reply, that is d4. The other choice, queen to b3, is not good at all. The simple reason is, after the move queen to e7, d4, and now knight to a5, and black get the bishop pair with a solid pawn advantage. So accordingly, the main move over here is d4, and after that, as per theory, the main move is knight to f6, but I am not going to propose in this lecture. Instead of that, my recommendation is you continue with the move h6 and completely taken out white from his all preparation. Now there is an important point over here, that white can never play the move d5, which is a positional blunder, because after the move d5, black can continue with the move knight to a5, attacking the bishop, bishop to d3, and after knight to f6, castle, castle, knight b to d2, and the move b6. I think this is more or less plan of campaign by black. So what black actually want to do is, he wants to play rook to e8, bishop to b7, bishop to f8, and then consolidate his center with the move d6 and asking white, hey, I'm a pawn up, and where is your attack? So remember this setup, guys. In most of the scenario we are trying to obtain this setup. Okay, let's follow the main line theory. Here white castle on the king side. Now black can play the move knight to f6, attacking e4, and the main line move continue with the move rook to e1. Now instead of rook to e1, in one blitz game my opponent immediately tried to open up the center with the move d captures e5, but I don't think so black has any trouble, because after the accurate reply bishop captures e5, knight captures e5, knight captures e5, black is attacking the bishop, so white has to forcefully move the bishop, and now black can continue with the move d6. White's idea is to grab the center with the move f4, but after the following sequence, knight to c6, e5, d captures e5, queen captures, knight captures, pawn captures, and now knight to d7, and not only black is a clear pawn up, but white has some shattered pawn, which is always a big time problem when your attack doesn't work. Okay, rook to e1, and now black should castle on the king side. Now when I check this position with the online database, there is one good point I found out about this position from the black perspective is there are only few games played as per the database, and you can see the result. They are pretty amazing for the black. So this is a great weapon if you are looking for a win against Evans Gambit. The mainline move over here is knight b to d2, but we should see the second alternative, which is occasionally played by the white, what you should do when your opponent plays knight to h4. Well, against this, my recommendation is you should certainly take this d4 pawn. And now white's idea is to plonk the knight on the lovely f5 square and meantime attacking the bishop. But black should not worry, because after bishop to c5, c captures d4 and bishop to b6. Yes, white has a good center, but with one d pawn move, black has consolidated his extra pawn. White can try over here moves such as e5 or d5, but it doesn't lead to anything. For example, if you play e5, then the simplest is you counterattack with the move d5, and after pawn captures and bishop to f5, pawn captures g7, and now rook to e8 with a winning position for the black. White cannot move this bishop. For example, if he moves somewhere, let's say bishop to b3, then after bishop captures d4, white indeed is going to lose the piece. Instead of e5, what happens if your opponent plays d5? Well, more or less same story. Here black can continue with the move knight to e5, attacking the bishop, and after the move bishop to b3, black has a strong move knight f to g4. And it's funny that in the game white has sacrificed a pawn to get attacked by black. So that's why the mainline move over here is knight b to d2. After that, black should continue with the move rook to e8. Now, as I have highlighted over here, white has plenty of choices, but against each of them our plan of campaign will remain same. So we want to play bishop to f8, b6, bishop b7, and then look out for the right movement to play d6 or d5. There are very few games played from this position, so all the analysis I have done, it's by myself. And almost all the lines, black get at least slight initiative or the advantage. The first move I want to consider is knight to f1, which is not a good move. The simple reason is after e captures d4, c captures d4, and rook captures e4, black emerge with a 2-pawn advantage. The second move I want to consider is queen to c2. Well, if white is not interrupting our plan, then we don't have any problems. Here obviously we are going to continue with the move b6, and now two moves has been tried from this position. Against knight to f1, my recommendation is you continue with the move bishop to b7, and after knight to g3, he captures d4. White's idea is to play knight to f5, and if allowed, then cripple the black pawn. Well, obviously we are not going to allow this, so the correct move is bishop to f8, and after c captures d4, d5, black has achieved his all trumps with a solid pawn advantage. I reached this position in a friendly match against a very good opponent, where he continued with the move e captures d5. I responded with the move knight to b4, attacking the queen, and if allowed, then black can recapture the pawn with a very good position. My opponent tried the move rook to e8, but after the following sequence, that is knight captures queen, rook captures queen, rook captures rook, rook to b1, and bishop captures d5, after the whole sequence, black has freed up all his pieces with a still pawn up advantage. The second move bishop to b2 has more or less same idea. Here we are going to continue with the move bishop to b7, and after the move knight to f1, we can take this d4 pawn. So at first glance it looks like white has this impressive center, but here black has this amazing shot. Rook captures e4, and black is coming on top from all the variations. Black's idea is, after rook captures e4, he wants to play knight to b4, attacking two spots. So white response is force. White has to play queen to b3, but after following sequence, that is bishop captures f7 check, king to h8. If knight to e5, then queen to f8 is a very good reply. So one of the game continue here with the move knight 1 to d2, but then comes bishop to d5, bishop captures, knight captures, and black has simplified some of the pieces with a still pawn advantage position. The third move I want to consider is bishop to d3. Well, after that, black has two choices. The more sharper choice is e captures d4, which I have covered in the PGN. However, my recommendation is more safer bishop to f8. So now if allowed, then black is definitely looking for the move d6 or d5. So white response is force. White has to take this pawn, and no matter however he takes the pawn, let's say d captures e5, then black can continue with the move knight captures e5, knight captures e5, and now rook to e5. The most critical response over here is f4, but if your opponent plays moves such as knight to f3, then the simplest is you play rook to e8, and after the move e5, black should continue with the move knight to d5, attacking c3, queen to c2, and now d6, free up both the bishop with material advantage. And look at white, he has some horrible pawns where no attack to speak of. I have attached a sample game in the PGN, so kindly go through it. So let's look at the most critical reply, f4. Well, here rook to e8 is forced, and now e5. Again knight to d5, hitting f4, hitting c3, but white has a sneaky reply, that is queen to f3. Here black cannot take this pawn because after bishop to c2, attacking the knight, black is forced to play ugly move bishop to b4, as if you try to escape this knight via the route knight to b5, then after queen to d3, black is going to lose a piece. So that's why greedy move knight to c3 is not possible. So instead of that, my recommendation is you should continue with the move c6. I raised this position 3 times in online games, and these are the 3 replies tried by my opponent. So let's see each by turn. In the first game, my opponent tried the move f5, which looks so aggressive, but I think after bishop check, king to h1, and the move d6, black has diffused all the threats. If bishop to b2, then d captures e5 is a very strong reply. So in the game, my opponent tried the move knight to c4, keeping all the tension. But I'm afraid this move is not good enough, because after d captures e5, rook captures e5, and the move b5, black get a decisive advantage. Game continue with the move rook check, queen takes, and now knight to d2, which allows queen to sweep down to the other side of the board with the queen check, bishop to f1, and now lovely move bishop to f2. So black has a very simple threat of knight to e3. My opponent tried the move queen to e2, but after bishop captures f5, it is very clear that black obtained 2-pawn advantage with a very aggressive setup. In the second game, my opponent tried the move c4, but I think this is less accurate, because after knight to b4, attacking the bishop, bishop to b1, and now d6, free up black's position. He tried a3, but this is all prepared, as I continue with the move d captures e5, and white cannot even touch this knight or this pawn. For example, if we take this knight, then after queen to d4, white is going to lose an exchange. Probably the most critical reply over here is knight to c4, but against this our plan of campaign will very consistent. Yup, we are going to play the move d6. Open our bishops and undermining the white center. If f5, then b5 is a very strong reply. So in the game, my opponent tried the move bishop to d2, but after d captures e5, knight captures e5, knight to f6, bishop to e3, and the move bishop to e6, white has a very simple plan of campaign where white has no attack to speak of. The fourth move I want to consider is bishop to b3. Well, against this, my recommendation is you continue with the move knight to a5. So if allowed, then black is definitely going to take this bishop pair. So for example, let's say bishop to b2, then knight captures, pawn captures, pawn captures, pawn captures, and now bishop to b4 with a wonderful position. So obviously your opponent is not going to allow this, and he is going to play this theoretical move knight to c4. So white idea is to not only pressurizing the e5 square, but in some lines white can get our dark square bishop and ruin our pawn structure. Well, here black response is force. Black has to take this knight, and after bishop captures, my recommendation is you play this pawn sacrifice line where you're giving back the material, but in return you get a very good active position. It doesn't matter whether white take this pawn or play bishop to d3. Let's see the most critical line, that is bishop captures b5, bishop to b7, pressurizing the e4. And a sample line can run like this: d5, rook to b8, rook to b1, bishop to c5, bishop to d2, knight to g4, attacking f2, rook to e2, and now the center undermining move c6. The line continue with the move d captures c6, bishop captures c6, bishop captures, rook captures, queen captures, pawn captures. After the whole sequence, yes, indeed, white has restored the material balance, but if you carefully look at this position, black has more active minor pieces than white, and that's why this position is advantageous to the black. Okay, let's consider the most critical reply by white, that is queen to b3. So white is pressurizing the f7 square, which black has to defend with the move queen to e7. With this move, black has created a threat, so white has to deal with this, and accordingly the mainline move is bishop to d3. Now instead of bishop to d3, in one game my opponent tried the move knight to h4, which has the idea of distracting the black play, but black should not be afraid of this, as after knight to a5 attacking two spots, queen to a5, if you take this bishop, then after knight to c4, black position doesn't look good. So my recommendation is you continue with the move b6, allowing this knight to f5 idea. Afterwards black will play queen to f8. Now if white take this bishop, then we can take back with our queen, and the resulting position is completely fine for the black. So my opponent tried the move bishop to d3. I continue with my piece development, that is bishop to b7, and now he connected his rook with the move bishop to b2. Well, so far white is doing good, but after black's next forcing reply, that is bishop to c6 attacking the queen, queen to c2, and now bishop to a3. By exchanging the dark square bishop, not only black will reduce the attacking power of the white, but later on black can play the move g6, kick this knight out of his territory, and remain a solid pawn advantage with a wonderful position. So as per the theory, mainline move over here is bishop to d3. Well, after that my recommendation is you continue with the move knight to h4 attacking the queen, queen to a4, and now b6, and continue with our thematic plan. Okay, white will continue with his normal idea, that is knight to f1, bishop to b7, and now knight to g3. Looks good, right? But one problem, it's slow, and we can exploit this with the move e captures d4. knight to f5, queen to f8, and now white has these two critical reply. First move e5 is not a good move. The simple reason is after bishop captures f3, black obtained a very good advantage. Kindly note, if g captures f3, then bishop captures e5 and black has a winning position. So the critical line runs with the move c captures d4, supporting the center. Black should certainly save this bishop with the move bishop to c6, queen to d1, and now knight to d5. Okay, white get his piece back, but after rook check, queen captures, and now rook to e8, attacking the queen, queen to d1, pawn captures d6, and this time around black has 2-pawn advantage. Okay, what happens if your opponent take this bishop? Well, of course, here time being it will double our pawn, but now black is attacking 3 times on the e4 square, and funny enough that pawn cannot go forward. So white has to defend this pawn, and the way to do is queen captures d4, but after the following sequence, that is rook to e6, bishop to a3, queen to e8, knight to d2. Instead of knight to d2, if white foolishly take this pawn, then after knight to c6, white is going to lose a piece, so that's not possible. So knight to d2 is one of the best reply. After that, black can unravel his pawn structure with the move d5, and after e5 and knight to c6, once again black obtain a 2-pawn advantage. Well, I hope you enjoy and learn my tricky pet line against Evans Gambit. So far, I have amazing winning ratio with this setup, and today I have shared my secret with you. Hope you had wonderful success in your game as well. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment on my video, and I'll meet you in my next episode very soon. Bye and take care.